My name is Ibrahima Hathie. I'm the research director of IPAR, a policy research center based in Dakar, working in Senegal but also in West Africa on issues related to the environment, to agriculture, but also to post-MDGs. And we are involved in a network of 48 think tanks in the global south, which is Southern Voice. And Southern Voice works in the area of post-2015 to make the voice of southern countries heard and to be involved in the process of the post-2015. What we realized when we started this process about 3 years ago was that most of the talk of the research that has been done was done by northern countries and by institutions and research centers based in the north. More than 90% of the output was from those countries. So we thought that it's better that certain think tanks, policy centers, work on the issues of the post-2015 to make the voice of the South be heard. That's why we started doing research in this area, looking into the unfinished agenda, because we knew that the objective of the MDGs would not be reached totally. So we wanted to make a point and do the diagnostic and see how it went, but also be involved in the process of defining the upcoming agenda on the sustainable development goals that will start in 2015. That's why we did some research on this area. We also did some advocacy, went to the UN, worked with other NGOs to make our voice heard. And specifically in Africa, we also tried to see how the African countries and all the stakeholders in Africa were trying to get involved in the process. Back in 2010, the UN agencies in Africa, UNECA, UNDP, and the African Union Commission decided to work together to define an African position. At that time, they organized regional consultations and also national consultations. That was within the mandate of the UN, because a lot of consultation were going on. At the same time, civil society organizations in Africa organized together to be involved. They not only were part of the process of the UNCA, but they also organized their own process of consultation. They also benefited from key events. First of all, when the UN appointed President Sirleaf of Liberia for the HLP, the high-level panel, then the civil society organization went to meet with her and proposed to work together with her. She accepted, and they set up a secretary in Liberia to provide some inputs to the president of Liberia, who were one of the chair of the high-level panel. So that was really key in how the civil society in Africa made its voice heard. Secondly, when the African Union were conducting its own process, they were involved at the beginning. But when the head of states decided to gain ownership of the process, they appointed a high-level committee of 10 heads of states from different regions of Africa, 2 per region. So there were 10, and they mandated that high-level committee to work to get one voice for Africa, which is the common African position. They did the work with the backing of the technical committee, which was the UNECA, UNDP, the African Development Bank, who were playing the role of the technical committee. So they worked together, but they didn't want to involve civil society organization in the committee, which was not a good thing. Unfortunately, because they were not involved, some of the issues that were keen to them were left aside. For instance, the women's organization, Africa-wide, were fighting to have one pillar on women, on gender. The common African position, when it went out, it did not have that. Although, at one time, the UNECA accepted to involve women organization, but also CSOs, the civil society organization, in one member state committee to reflect on gender issues and to see how to mainstream gender into the whole process and into the common African position. Despite that, when the common African position came out, we realized that gender was within, but it was not a pillar. There were 6 pillars. At the beginning, it was just 5 pillars, but they added one on peace and security. So overall, we can say that Africa succeeded in speaking in one voice, which is a good thing. They also involved civil society and many other stakeholders during the process. However, at one time, the process was hijacked, and some of the issues that were really at the heart of civil society were left aside. And those are women issues, but also governance and youth employment. So those 3 issues were left aside. They were within the pillars, but they were not visible as pillars. So that was some of the resentment that civil society organization had. Now the common African position is out. It was out early 2014. The challenge now is ownership. How the countries will take this document, make them their own, and go to negotiate with the UN and all member countries. Because from September 2014 up to next year, September 2015, there's a long process of negotiation, and it would be really good that African countries be able to use this common African position to advocate so that African issues be heard at the international level. Yeah, the process of including the common African position in the intergovernmental negotiations is underway. The common African position was adopted end of January and then launched just in June 2014. There's a committee working on sustainable development goals, and Africa has set up a committee and is asking that committee to use the Common African Position as an input into the negotiations. You know, right now, the process is at a certain level. The UN Secretary General will write a synthesis report, which will be out in December. And the synthesis report will be an input to the negotiations. What the Africans want is that this synthesis report include the main issue in the Common African Position, and they are advocating for that. And luckily, the country that will lead the 69 General Assembly next year is Uganda. So it's in Africa. And recently, the special advisor to the UN Secretary General, which is a lady from Nigeria, Amina Mohammed, was in Kampala for a national consultation because they wanted to see how to relate the Common African Position within the national consultation. And this will prepare the negotiation. So I think Africa is in a good shape to use that. Now it's not easy, it's challenging because other parts of the world also have their own issues, and the Africans have to fight to get their voice heard. And this document can be a good tool in that it's something for 54 countries, and it involves all the ideas of stakeholders from the civil society organization to day-to-day Africans and also institutions in Africa. So I think it's a good thing. Yes, the three issues that were not included as pillar were governance, youth employment, and gender, women empowerment. It's hard to know why they were not. My own explanation is just because the final decision were taken by technicians and head of states. If in the committee that took the decision you had women's organization, then the gender issues will be prominent. If civil society organization were in, obviously governance will be in, because we know that governance issues are a problem in Africa. And let me say something. If you look at the priorities laid out by Africans in the My World survey, you will see that most of those issues are priorities for Africans. In the 7 first issues that you see there, you will see governance within the 7 issues. You will see youth employment within the 7 issues. So it's something that is at the heart of what Africans want. But the leadership in Africa might not want that, or they don't think it's maybe the prime objective or the prime priority, and they might take other priorities. The priorities that they have taken are not also bad. If you look at the pillars, the first pillar is structural transformation. I think economic transformation is key to African development. Technology also is something good. They also took the human development, which is education, health, all those issues that are in the current MDGs were taken. So it's not that bad. It's just if you want to make a decision to prioritize, you will leave out some issues. And depending on who decides, some issues will be upfront, others will be on the backside. And unfortunately, it is in the process that there were problems. Because if they did the same as what President the president of Liberia, Ellen Johnson, did, maybe the outcome will not be the same, because she accepted the civil society organization to be part of her secretary, and she got all the inputs from the civil society organization. Even when the high-level panel were organizing in Liberia 3 days in Liberia, the high-level panel accepted that the first day will be a CSO day, a day for civil society organization to make their voice heard. So that's excellent. Why the African leadership did not do that? That's the question, I think. The study I made at the beginning, I was thinking about, wow, there's a big process going on. There's a lot of outputs, writing, decision being made at the international level. There are some consensus, there are some divergence. How does it reflect the priorities of Africa? That was my question. How does it reflect the work? When I started doing the work, then I realized, oh, the HLP said no one should be left behind. So Africans, all of Africa should be taken in. So how does it reflect that? So, and I started thinking about no voice behind. Instead of no one behind, I said no voice behind. So let everybody in. That's how the research started. Then I realized that I needed to look at the process within Africa first. That's what we discussed lately. After that, I looked the African consensus, which is the common African position, and the consensus at the international level. What I realized is that there are a lot of common ground, but there are some issues that Africans are keen to and that are not in the agenda, in the international agenda. For instance, structural transformation, inclusive economic growth, all those issues are not at the forefront of the international agenda. It is for Africa because the first pillar of the common African position is on structural transformation. Technology and innovation is the second pillar for Africa. It's not in the debate right now in the international debate. So that's why I think Africans have to be aware of that departure from their own interests, and they have to make their voice heard right away. Fortunately, the the open working group on sustainable development goal got its outcome document out just a few months ago in July, and luckily that document is very close to the African priorities compared to other documents, institutional document that went out in 2013. So we are hopeful that the synthesis report of the Secretary General will be influenced by the results of the open working group. If that's the case, then many issues that are in the African agenda will be involved there. However, some issues like structural economic transformation are not there. So Africans have to do their own work. They have to do their homework and go and fight so that their voice be heard. I think Africans have made a lot of good progress in terms of working together and succeeding in speaking in one voice. So that's a good thing. They have now to face the challenge of ownership, make all countries be aware of the common African position and use it as a tool for negotiation. That's a call that should be made, and civil society organizations should work towards that objective, working into the countries so that the governments in each of the African countries be aware of the importance of the common African position and the need to use it to have a common voice in the international arena. They also need to work with other southern countries, like other groups, like Asians and Latin Americans, and even some of the European countries, to be able to arrive to a consensus that is favorable to Africa. So those are the things that needs to be done. We have 1 year to go, and there's a lot of work ahead.